Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has rich friends, decades-long friendships with wealthy conservatives who have paid for his luxury vacations, a house, private school tuition, a souped-up RV. Clarence Thomas also seems to know that's not normal because he's never disclosed these gifts. Now a new report in ProPublica reveals why these rich conservatives may have found a way to befriend Clarence Thomas. Quote, in early January 2000, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was at a five-star beach resort in Sea Island, Georgia, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. After almost a decade on the court, Thomas had grown frustrated with his financial situation, according to friends. He had recently started raising his young grandnephew, and Thomas's wife was soliciting advice on how to handle the new expenses. At the resort, Thomas gave a speech at an off-the-record conservative conference. He found himself seated next to a Republican member of Congress on the flight home. The two men talked, and the lawmaker left the conversation worried that Thomas might resign. Congress should give Supreme Court justices a pay raise, Thomas told him. If lawmakers didn't act, one or more justices may leave soon, maybe in the next year. The congressman was Cliff Stearns of Florida, who, according to ProPublica, wrote a letter to Clarence Thomas saying, quote, as we agreed, it is worth a lot to Americans to have the Constitution properly interpreted. We must have the proper incentives here, too, end quote. Stearns' office soon sought help from a lobbying firm working on the issue, and he delivered a speech on the House floor about judges' salaries getting eroded by inflation. Now, Clarence Thomas started to talk about resigning, and suddenly he had all these new friends. Clarence Thomas's friends have sent him and his wife, Ginny, on all-expenses-paid vacations, flown them on private jets, paid his nephew's tuition, and even paid for his mother's house, which she got to live in rent-free. And now, despite not getting a salary bump, Clarence Thomas's views on his salary have changed.
Right now, what is the compensation of a justice of the Supreme Court?
Oh, goodness, I think it's plenty. My wife and I are doing fine. We don't live extravagantly, but we are fine.
A few weeks after Clarence Thomas said, we are fine, he boarded billionaire Harlan Crow's private plane to Indonesia for a vacation on Harlan Crow's yacht, none of which was properly disclosed at the time. Senator Elizabeth Warren put it bluntly, quote, Justice Clarence Thomas wanted to boost his income, and Republican billionaires were happy to give him a lavish lifestyle so he wouldn't resign from the Supreme Court. It's corruption, plain and simple, end quote. Joining us now, New York Times opinion columnist Jamelle Bouie. He has written many columns on Supreme Court ethics and discussed them on this program. He's also co-host of the podcast Unclear and Present Danger. Jamelle, good to see you. Thank you for being here. There's a little piece of context about this conversation that Clarence Thomas may have had with this congressman on an airplane in the year 2000, and that was that there was an election coming up. And there was a possibility that Al Gore could become the president of the United States. And if Justice Thomas were to resign in that initial period, there's a possibility that a democratically appointed justice could take his place. All of a sudden, it became an imperative. It wasn't a stated threat, but it was an imperative that you probably don't want me to resign because I don't think I'm making enough money.
I think that's right. I think that's very much what Thomas likely had in mind, right? He's aware of the presidential cycle. And I'm sure Republican lawmakers are also very aware that this was a possibility. I want to add a thing about this entire kind of situation, because I think it's it illustrates how this kind of corruption works. It's not quid pro quo necessarily, right? It's not Thomas soliciting money so that he'll change his votes. It's very much, these are all ideological allies, and it's very much about keeping Thomas in the fold, about keeping Thomas satisfied and happy, about keeping Thomas satisfied with the work that he's doing. And that's sort of what the purpose of this is, to sort of smooth the rough edges of this particular situation everyone finds themselves in. And I think it's like an important thing to recognize, that this isn't so much Thomas saying, I'll do this if I'll rule your way if you support me financially. It's more, this is hard and I don't make as much money as I want. And I think that should be rectified.
And I want to put up ProPublica, as part of the article, sort of gave some comparisons about what people earn. The median income for an American worker is $60,000. Means half of all Americans earn more, half earn less. Members of Congress, $174,000. Associate Supreme Court justices, $274,000. And a partner at a high-paying law firm, $7.2 million they can earn. Clearly, Clarence Thomas had choices, and people who get into public service make choices. $274,000 is many times what the median American wage is, but there's a choice to be in public service. At some point, if you don't want to work for that kind of money, you've got options.
Right. That's very much my view is no one's forcing Clarence Thomas to be a Supreme Court justice. And so if he feels that the job is not remunerative enough for him, then he can simply leave it. He'll still maintain the prestige of having been a Supreme Court justice. So I make no mistake, I'm not particularly sympathetic to this, but I do think that it is useful to sort of understand how this kind of corruption works, right? It's about keeping Thomas on the good side of his allies. Everyone's sympathetic with each other here. This isn't the case of Harlan Crow having to persuade Clarence Thomas of anything. It's much more a case of making sure that Thomas does not feel aggrieved at all while he has this job, especially since, as you mentioned, right, a high-paying lawyer at a private firm can make a lot of money, millions of dollars. And these are the legal circles that Thomas is going to be in anyway. So this is compounding any sense of like grievance he may feel about his own pay, that he's comparing himself to his peers who are much more better off than he is. But again, the big picture is this is how Clarence Thomas feels. He can just find another job.
Right. And clearly he can make a lot more money doing it. Jamel, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.